Hey everybody, welcome back to Sparks Fire and Baling Wire. This weekend, as promised, I'm going to start working on this third member, or pumpkin, differential, whatever you want to call it. Start out with, got these keepers here, got an adjustable ring on either side that sets the bearing preload. And these are threaded, and this cap, it's basically like a main cap on a crankshaft. So to get these threads to match up, I'm going to put a couple witness marks on each side before I start taking anything apart. I'm just going to take a center punch. Put a dot on the cap, dot on the main housing. This side I'll put 2 dots on the cap, 2 dots on the main housing. See, these keepers just have a couple little teeth that line up, catching the hole there. Just keeps it from working one way or another. Pretty basic. And there's the threads inside the cap I was talking about. Same on that side. Now I have to pop that whole differential carrier up out of there. Not how I intended to do that, but it's part. Before things went flying, it's just tapered roller bearing on each side. That's the cup that goes on it. And this is your threaded adjuster that goes on each side to set the tension, and it also sets your gear from side to side so you get the proper backlash on it. There is the ring gear out. Pinion will come out next. This differential, I just took some scrap iron, welded some pieces together, bolted it to my engine stand, because these third members are also quite awkward to work on otherwise. So that was a handy little holder for it. The next thing I'm going to do is try and get this yoke off the pinion. Okay, this surprises me. I thought I'd really have a tough time getting that yoke off, but the pinion actually fell down out of there when I took the nut off. There's one pinion. Sleeve for the bearing spacer. And it looks like got a couple shims down there. I think I can go ahead and knock that bottom bearing out. Got all new bearings and races for this. Okay, there's the original pinion seal and bearing. Bearing's not bad shape, but it's not getting reused anyway, so we don't care about that. Next, I'll go ahead and knock them races out of there. Okay, everything's out of the housing. I'm gonna get ready. I'm gonna get this cleaned up, and then this will be ready for reassembly. Okay, I got the new shirt grip differential over here off camera. Pulled the ring gear off the old one. It's a shrink fit around there, so it's pretty tight. Tap that off with this brass grip. Got it started on here. This kit came with all new bolts, so off camera I got all them in. Use a left hand thread, and when I put the new ones in, put some red Loctite on them, then tighten them down, do the old crisscross pattern all the way around. Do that 2 steps till what is it, 65 foot-pounds of torque on them, I believe. And those are red Loctited, so that'll be good to go. Now, next step, those new bolts for the ring gear came with this kit. The next step's going to be to get these new bearings put on. And we will do that over here in the press. So far, this sticks up a ways, so I had to take a small punch, go around, get it fully seated. That made me quite nervous because one slip of the punch and I'm going to ruin that brand new bearing. But got both sides on. So that part is done for the time being. Now we move on to the housing. Here's that sleeve with the 2 shims that were on there. Now off camera, that was way too easy, wasn't it? Well, that's by design. I got that bearing pulled off. You have to be very careful. I didn't want to ruin that original bearing. But I got it off. I took a grinding stone and kept working at it till it slides on and off nice by hand, because we got shims here that may or may not have to change. Being as I'm reusing my original gear set, I'm going to start out with what it originally was, see how things go together. If everything checks out, and I will take it all back apart, put the new bearing in, double check it again. I mean, the new bearing should be identical to the old one, but you never know. I'll go ahead and put the new bearing on the outside because that one slides on, whereas this bottom one's pressed. That should get me pretty close to my pinion depth, I guess what you'd call it. Then I'll set my preload up for what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like 15 inch-pounds or something like that. I'm going to have to look it up again. But we'll get that done. Then we get the differential set in there. Start setting that backlash and get that set up. Just turn this on its side so it doesn't fall out. Get stuff ready. Throw that sleeve in there and the original 2 shims. This kit comes with shims too. Got the big ones for behind that bearing and little ones. Whole pack of them here somewhere, but have all the bearings or all the shims. I'm also going to need a yoke. Now what I'll need to do, first I need to come up with some way to hold this. And I'll have to torque that down to whatever the spec is. I'm going to have to look that up too. That should be my starting point for setting the backlash on the differential. Off camera here, I made this handy little wrench. It just hooks on the yoke. You can buy special tools for it, but it's something I'm hopefully never going to do again. So I just threw this together out of some 1-inch square scrap iron that I had laying around. You got to tighten this yoke down to 120 foot-pounds of torque. Which I'm at. So now the next thing is going to do is to check the preload on this bearings, which is supposed to be around 10 to 15 inch-pounds, something like that. What you want to do here is check that while it's moving. And I'm way too tight, I could tell that before I even started. Anyway, you want to be around that 10 to 15 inch-pound torque range. It takes more than that to get it going, so you want to get it turning and then look and see what's going. Mine's so tight that it's kind of jumping, so it's bouncing all over. It's obviously way too tight. But you need this type of torque wrench, either a dial or a beam type, which is what this is the beam type. I'm all in favor of buying quality tools if you need them, but hopefully this is going to be a one-time deal for me. So I bought this thing off eBay for like $12, something like that. It's probably not the most accurate, but it's going to be good enough for this. So I'm going to need to shim that since it's too tight. So I'll reverse the whole process, start over. And this might take 2 or 3 tries. So I'll probably just bring you back here when it's done, when I get what I want for torque setting, and show it to you then. Okay, I lied to you. I'm not going to bring you back when this is done. Remember I took it apart to add the spacer sleeve in it? And these are the shims that were in it originally. And I got this packet of shims with my rebuild set. And since I don't need much, and I know it's not going to take much, I'm going to use the thinnest possible shim out of this set. Which looks like it's 12 thousandths. That's probably going to be too much. So originally I had 45 thousandths. I think I only want to add about 6 or 7 more, so I'm going to shoot for a combination that gets me just over 50. There I'm at 52. I'm going to try that. So I'll throw these shims on there. Unlike the one I have, which is a 741 case, this is how you had to do it. The newer 489 cases had what was called a crush sleeve. It was a collapsible sleeve. You put it on there, put your bearings together, throw the yoke on, torque it to spec, and it was done automatically for you. Which is great, but the problem with that is over time that's going to loosen up, because as you're going one direction, that gear is going to try and go this way. It's going to work back and forth, and eventually that's going to loosen that up. Where with this, that's not going to ever happen. So this is definitely more time consuming to set up, but it's going to last a lot longer too. And hopefully I'm going to be right here, because if you remember this old bearing, that's still the original bearing. I'm just using it for fitting purposes. So there's still no guarantee it's going to be right when I'm done, but that's what makes this such a time consuming process. But it's important to get it right, otherwise your rear end's going to howl and make noises, and it's just going to wear out prematurely. We don't want that, so it's definitely worth it to take the time here, get it right. So I got the shim set up I think I want. I'll go ahead and put it back in. Another thing worth noting here, notice I haven't put the seal in yet. Really no reason to. And I don't want to risk destroying that new seal taking this apart. However many times it may wind up being before I get it done. So I'll just wait till I do the final assembly to put the seal in. Same thing with this pinion nut. The kit comes with a brand new lock nut, which ideally you only want to use a lock nut one time. So there too, I'm not using that yet. I'm still using the original, which is good enough for what I'm doing here. And once it's all set up and I can finally get where I want it to be, then I'll use that new lock nut on here. Okay, there I'm at my torque spec. Oh, I'm right there. Nailed it on the second try. It's nice and smooth this time. And I'm right at the 10 inch-pound range, which I'm going to be happy with. Granted, that's still assuming that that new bearing is going to be exactly where I'm at with the old one, which that old one was in good shape yet. And this car, we got the complete car. It was given to us, me and a friend of mine. So I know pretty much everything about the car. It was a one-owner car. It only had 60-some thousand miles on it. And it was parked in a barn in 1977. Which I would guess, just because back then, to trade it in, it was probably worth $100, maybe $2 at best. So the guy that had it probably just stuck it in his barn and forgot about it. Which is good for me, because now I have it, and it's going to live on.